Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I apologise for yesterday, but I was at an Afrexim Bank seminar and I spoke there today, and Fleur Chiboto, who manages the external relations, tweeted a remark I made, which I said is information is the most valuable currency of all. Most enjoyable, and thoroughly enjoyed myself after a bit of an excursion yesterday. I thought they said Safari Park's about 30 minutes outside Nairobi, and I got there and then I realised it wasn't, and it was the Nairobi Safari Club. And that took me about an hour and a half to make my way back. Traffic was extraordinary on the Thika Superhighway. Macro thoughts, Paul Virilio. Wealth is the hidden side of speed, and speed the hidden side of wealth. Home thoughts, let me start with Virilio again. The field of vision is comparable for me to the terrain of an archaeological dig. To see is to be on guard, to wait for what emerges from the background, without any name, without any particular interest. What was silent will speak, what is closed will open, and will take on a voice. I saw this remark on a tweet. We're living at a moment in which the very fabric of human society is being rewoven. It's part of a TED Talk. If you want to have a look at it, go to Rich Wrap-Ups and click on the link. BBC Newsbeat tweeted, lightning strike over the Golden Gate Bridge as a storm moves into San Francisco. Wonderful city. San Francisco political reflections. Myanmar opposition leader Suu Kyi wins seat, seeks meetings with president and military chief. Interesting piece in Bloomberg. Africa's labour forces are soaring while jobs struggle to catch up. An explosion in the African working age population will be a wasted opportunity if the continent's labour markets don't catch up. 17 sub-Saharan African nations will rise the most in rankings of the countries with the fastest growing working age populations by 2050, even though they're coming from a very low base. According to the United Nations World Population Prospects, Nigeria will surpass the US with the world's third biggest labour force. That stretching age bracket, 15 to 64, gives Africans an edge in productive potential and upward mobility to lift citizens out of poverty. But harnessing it will mean delivering hundreds of millions of new jobs and creating more robust education and training for young people. The continent isn't creating jobs fast enough, and employment gaps stem from a lack of specialized schooling. 3/4 of Africans don't have access to electricity, and even grid-connected businesses suffer regular blackouts, so they often rely on pricier diesel generators. Moving goods is expensive, roads are potholed and gridlocked. Rising incomes have led to an increasing number of African students with the means to pay for education, yet even those with university degrees often can't find work because their skills don't match the need, swelling the ranks of unemployed. In some scenarios, the opportunity of a growing workforce could actually turn into a risk. Idle and frustrated youth are a prime recruitment target for violent movements, or become a burden on state services where those exist in Africa. African governments need to do some forward thinking, invest now, and tailor their policies for the demographic shift. This is the World Bank. A key measure must be a campaign to slow population growth via lower fertility rates. In fact, expectations were that the fertility rate would start turning south. By now it isn't. A key measure must be a campaign to slow population growth via lower fertility rates, which as many as 7.6 children per woman in Africa, among the highest in the world, compared with a world average of 2.5. And I concluded by asking, is it a demographic dividend or a time bomb? And I've referred to that, and I think we've seen the time bomb come into play in places like Ouagadougou and others. Russia plane crash after Sharm el-Sheikh the other airports that carry a health warning. Have a look at the diagram. To narrow down the range of airports perceived as at risk, the Independent has cross-referenced Mr. Hammond's remarks with specific Foreign Office warnings about terrorist activity in areas with direct flights to Britain. Besides Sharm el-Sheikh itself, the other locations are Algiers, Tunis, Dakar, Jeddah and Riyadh. The Foreign Office implies other airports in the Gulf face a heightened threat, saying terrorists also continue to issue statements threatening attacks in the Gulf. These include references to attacks on residential compounds, military, oil, transport and aviation interests. The main East African gateway, Nairobi, is also likely to attract scrutiny. The Foreign Office says there are concerns about the lack of security at Wilson Airport in Nairobi. These extend to the Kenya capital's international airport, Jomo Kenyatta. International markets, 2-year Bund US Treasury spread is at a 9-year high, and that's supportive for the dollar against the euro. Currency markets, when I looked last, euro 107.46, dollar index still above 99, 99.05. Japanese yen 123.14, Swissy 1.0051, pound 151.42, Aussie 0.7059, India rupee 61.156, South Korean won 11.5552, Rial 375.39, Egyptian pound 803.01, and the rand 14.1765. Put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. Expectations of a December rate hike are now fully priced in. Interesting tweet from Holger: decision time for a Portugal president after Portuguese government toppled. This has had some uncertainty into the euro. Let me put up a 3-month chart of the euro. This is all about bond yields. Gold below 1090, 1088.51. I'll put up a 6-month chart of that. That's back to that bear trend about which I was so convinced for most of the year. Oil prices under pressure. Holger's again put up a very good graph. You can see Brent and NYMEX in that graph. NYMEX crude oil below $44 and $43.77, which is cheap. Looks like we're going back below 40. Christie's sold Amedeo Modigliani's painting of a reclining nude for $170.4 million, the second highest price for an artwork at auction, to a Chinese billionaire Li Yiquan. Put up a photograph that was tweeted of this painting, the second most expensive painting at auction. And then Warhol's For Marilyns, which was painted in 1962, was the top seller the following night at $36 million, about $2 million less than it sold for at an auction 2 years ago. And this plays into the story. There is a general unease in the markets at Christine Bell. People are waiting for the other shoe to drop. We've been talking about this for a while, but now it seems like a real possibility. That's the idea. The art markets are overcooked. Emerging markets, Russia's US dollar adjusted return has been positive in 2015, up double digits year to date. Have a look at the graph because it's a tremendous outperformance. Moving on to sub-Saharan Africa, Burundi at tipping point as killings rise. This is the UN rights chief. 3 months after the disputed re-election, and the UN could intervene to stop the repeat of past horrors, the UN rights chief has said. Rise in extrajudicial killings, including political assassinations, has left 240 people dead since April, with bodies being dumped on the streets almost nightly. All options should be considered, including asset freezes against those inciting violence, the invocation of Chapter 7, which allows a range of actions to prevent regional conflict, al-Hussein said. He referred to credible allegations of torture by intelligence and police units. Foreign Minister Alain Nyamitwe said the country was pursuing negotiations and peace initiatives. Burundi is not in flames, he was quoted as saying. My government is not against dialogue, which is part of the nation's traditions. I spoke of this risk in May, when I said spillover risks from this debacle loom. Maldives is looking to calm tourists as boat blast taints paradise. seeking to assure tourists that the island nation is safe after the fallout from an explosion. President Abdullah Yamin's speedboat prompted him to declare a state of emergency. While we do have an extremist threat, there's never been any targeting or attacks on tourists or any kind of increased threat for tourists. Every Maldivian knows that this really is our lifeblood, the basis of our economy, and perhaps that has also helped in deterring any possible incidents. Terrorism, this was interesting, is also a concern. As many as 100 people from a tiny little island from the Muslim-majority country have reportedly left to join the jihad. Subsequently, I learned that Maldives had announced the end to its state of emergency, and I found this tweet: in Maldives they have glowing beaches caused by plankton. Zambia's proposed power prices seem devastating farms and factories. Power tariff increases proposed by ZESCO would lead to a collapse in manufacturing and threaten the livelihood of farmers, lobby groups have told public hearings on the plans. The price rise the company is asking for would translate to increases of as much as 248% for factories. The manufacturing industry in Zambia is going to collapse completely. The jump in costs would be disastrous for farmers. Zambia is facing its worst power shortage yet, as low water levels at the hydropower dams it relies on for about 95% of electricity generation curb supplies. One of the reasons ZESCO has put forward for more than doubling prices for commercial and residential customers is so that new power stations, which cost more to operate, and that low tariffs have discouraged investment. South African all-share fell 1.51%. Yesterday it's had a tough time. It's now up just 5.62% year to date. Dollar rand, we're surely going to see fresh all-time lows. Egyptian pound trading at 803, but money is very scarce on those Egyptian streets and the currency needs to move a lot lower. Egyptian EGX 30 crashed 4.4% yesterday, and it's now down 23.55% year to date. Nigerian all-share down 16.38% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 12.47% year to date. Let's move on to Kenya. Centum reported first half profit after tax accelerated 55.04%. Investment and other income surged 341% to 8.38 billion. Finance costs up sharply, 1.261 billion. Profit before tax up 74.86 billion. Profit after tax up 55.04%. They said that the company profit before tax increased 132%, and it was attributable to a 100% increase in total investment income. And actually, they sold their stake in AON Minet. If you strip that out, it tells a little bit of a different story. But they really maintained the tempo. The share price has come off a bit, but I think it'll find support. But ultimately, it was a one-off game that supported those results. Kengen has announced its rights issue resolution. The link is on Rich Wrap-Ups. So is a link to the share price data. The Kengen share price trades on a price-earnings ratio of 1.718. The US ambassador to Kenya, Robert Godek, said on Monday, as I've said many times, corruption is undermining Kenya's future. It is destroying jobs and causing investors to take their money elsewhere. Big furore with the Interior Cabinet Secretary Nkaissery, who alleged a plot to destroy the government, incite Kenyans to start a campaign of mass action and destroy the government. He termed the matter one with serious ramifications for national security. We've even heard veiled calls for unconstitutional means towards this end, which poses a direct threat to our democracy and national security. He said reports of revelations of corruption in government were part of this scheme, which he termed economic sabotage. Irresponsible utterances by leaders are aimed at igniting mass action against the government, he said. Tom Mashindi is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Nation, said senior reporter John Gerachu was arrested on Tuesday in relation to an article questioning spending at the Interior Ministry. This is, in our view, intimidation. We don't expect this government to resort to these kind of strong-arm tactics to try and intimidate us. So, a bit of a concern there. Imperial Bank managers understated deposits by 38 billion shillings. Financial statements were not correct, were actually misleading. The deposits were understated by 38 billion and the lending by such an order of magnitude. Stanbic has extended its debut REIT sale by a week after investors seek clarity. This is the Fahari Income REIT, whose sale was supposed to end Thursday, will now end on November the 18th. Individual investors will account for 25% of the offer. The REIT is targeting to raise as much as 12.5 billion, which will go into rental properties. The IFC has said it will invest 1.5 billion shillings. Will be listed on the Securities Exchange on November 26th. If you want to have a look at some talking points, that link is on the wrap-ups as well. Kenya shilling last trading 102.245. Nairobi all shares up 3.25% since Thursday AM last week, remains down 13.23%. NSE 20 snapped its losing streak to close down 0.14%, and it's down 23.96% year to date. Once again, thank you for stopping by.